Do you know whether the gate was open or closed?
I do not know. The gate could have been opened. Becky had mentioned that she may wash the pool deck off that day. This would require her going through the fences to get to the spigot.
Where is the spigot?
In the front of the house.
Did you actually see the gate that afternoon?
I did not.
Did Becky occasionally leave the gate open on accident?
She had on occasion, but we stressed to her multiple times to keep it closed because of Chowser.
Are there any locks on the gate?
There are not, but they're very firm latches that a dog would have much difficulty unlocking.
So just to clarify, can you tell us 100% whether the gate was open or closed that afternoon?
I cannot.
How did you feel about the attack upon Ms. Reeder?
Objection. Relevance.
You can answer the question.
I am very upset with Race about what happened. If he would have listened to me in the beginning, we could have avoided all this.
Just one final question, Mr. Minster. After the Halloween attack, did you consider Chowser to have dangerous propensities?
I did. That's why I wanted to get rid of him.
Thank you. No further questions.
I'm good. I dropped something.
So the lawyer for the defendant's going to ask you some questions now.
Let me read this real quick, Your Honor. Is that all right?
Fine.
If the court is ready, may I proceed?
Well, I'm just going to ask counsel in general to please take your exhibits down if you're not still using them.
Mr. Minster, you testified you originally owned the dog, Chowser, correct?
Yes.
You raised him from a puppy, correct?
Yes.
And all the times you lived with him and owned him, how many times did he attack you?
He did not attack me.
Okay. I'd like to talk to you about the incident with the mailman, 2004.
Okay.
You didn't witness this event, did you?
I did not.
You received a letter and you showed it to Mr. Ipsa as you testified.
Yes.
But you told Mr. Ipsa that you didn't believe Chowser was vicious, didn't you?
Yes.
Turning your attention to the Halloween incident, you didn't witness this event either, did you?
I did not.
And you testified just on direct examination that you didn't know if anything was thrown at the house, correct?
Correct. There were eggs that I cleaned off the next day from the house. The boy did have the egg carton with him.
And you learned later that the house had been egged, correct?
Yes.
And that eggs had been thrown while the dog was in the front yard, correct?
Yes.
Aside from the boy who threw eggs at your house on Halloween evening, how many other people did Chowser attack that night?
None.
My client told you that the boy that evening had only been pinned to the ground, correct?
He was also bitten.
But my client told you that he had only been pinned to the ground, correct?
Yes.
In the 5 years since that incident, from 2005 to 2010, has Chowser been involved in any other incidents?
No.
Yet you decided to get rid of him, didn't you?
Yes.
But you didn't really get rid of him, Mr. Minster, did you?
I made him where he was not my liability.
Okay. You sold him to your roommate, my client, Mr. Ipsa, correct?
Yes.
And up until June 2010, the dog still lived in your house, correct?
Yes.
So you had no problem living with this dog that you testified was, and I'm quoting here, obviously dangerous and vicious, so long as it wasn't your responsibility, right?
Yes.
And from time to time, you and your roommate would let the dogs out into the backyard, right?
Yes.
When the dogs were in the backyard, you made it a point to keep the gates closed, correct?
Yes.
So you would say it would be exceedingly rare for the dogs to be in the backyard and the gates to be open, correct?
Yes.
Now, you testified just a few moments ago that the sprocket to connect the hose was in the front of the house, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Just to clarify, thank you. Initially, you were...
For the convenience of the court, can you show me where on that map that spigot is?
Absolutely.
Well, I'm asking the witness. Do you know where it is?
The front of the house is what I've been
Front of the house?
told.
So
Meaning...
the side of the house that has those trees on it as opposed to the side of the house with the pool?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
But we do keep, yes, that's correct, yes.
Mr. Minster, you were initially a party to this lawsuit, weren't you?
Yes.
And you were dropped from the suit?
Yes, it was.
Before this trial, you had never spoken to the plaintiff, had you?
No.
Okay. And this incident occurred on your property, didn't it?
Yes.
After you were dropped as a defendant in this suit, you agreed to testify on behalf of the plaintiff, correct?
Yes.
But you didn't witness the alleged attack on the plaintiff on June 6th, did
No.
you? In fact, much like the other two incidents, you didn't see anything at all.
No.
You did receive a phone call from your neighbor, correct?
Yes.
And you came home. That's what brought you home, correct?
Yes.
What, if anything, did you learn from that phone call?
She just sounded nervous and said I needed to come home, so I came home.
So, Mr. Minister, let me get this straight. You were contacted by the plaintiff after she dropped you from the lawsuit to testify about a dog you lived with but thought was vicious, yet never actually witnessed with your own eyes acting vicious?
Objection. Compound question.
Sustained.
No further questions.
You redirect, counsel.
Oh, no, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. The witness is excused. Unless the plaintiffs have any additional evidence they wish to submit before they rest, do you?
The plaintiff rests, Your Honor.
Court will recess for 5 minutes, at which point the defense can begin its case.
Do you need this more direct?
Court will come back into session. Is the defense prepared to begin its case?
Yes, Your Honor.
Let me call your first witness.
The defense calls Miss Becky Giles.
Ms. Giles, please come forward. Ma'am, is the testimony you're about to give in this court the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes. Please be seated.
Good afternoon. Can you just state your name for the court?
Becky Giles.
How do you know Robert Race Ipsa?
He is my fiance.
Where do you live?
I live on Limerick Lane, but I spend quite a few nights at his house on 1113 South Glenwood.
Okay. And who pays the mortgage at your home on Limerick?
Race does. He's the primary breadwinner.
Okay. And who bought your car?
Race did. It's more our car.
Miss Giles, are you employed?
No. Race doesn't believe in women working.
Now, how would you describe Race's roommate, West?
He's a nice guy. He's kind of stiff, kind of a real nervous guy.
Are you familiar with Race's dogs?
Yes. Queenie and Chowser.
And how would you describe them?
They're very gentle, laid back. They love to cuddle. Good dogs.
Okay. Permission to approach the witness, Your Honor?
That's fine.
I'm approaching with what's been labeled Defendant's Exhibit 1. Just take a look at that. Would you say that that's a fair and accurate depiction of what Chowser looks like?
Yes.
Okay. Could you describe Chowser's demeanor?
He's very laid back. He loves to play and run around and cuddle.
Before June 6, 2010, did you have any reason to believe that Chowser had dangerous propensities?
No, absolutely not.
Ms. Giles, what is Race's neighborhood like?
It's a pretty rough neighborhood, not very safe.
So, in addition to being a loving pet, what was Chowser's purpose?
To be a guard dog.
Where were you on the afternoon of June 6, 2010?
I was at Race's house.
And what did you do that afternoon?
I pretty much just watched soaps all afternoon.
Okay. And what happened after that?
Race came home and went up to take a shower, so I went upstairs to join him.
Okay. And then what happened after that?
The doorbell rang, so I ran downstairs to answer it.
And about how long would you say it took you to get to the doorbell? To the door, I'm sorry.
Probably like 10 to 15 seconds.
And then what happened next?
Well, I heard a commotion in the backyard, and Race came running down the stairs and ran out back, and there, Chowser was on top of someone in the backyard. And Race pulled Chowser off the woman.
Just to clarify, whenever you got to the door, was there anyone there?
No.
Okay. And you said that Race pulled Chowser off the plaintiff?
Yes.
Okay. And then was the plaintiff injured?
She had like a little scratch on her knee, but it's really Race who was hurt the worst. His arm was pretty mangled.
Okay, so then what happened next? What happened after Race pulled Chowser off?
The ambulance came.
Okay, and then what happened?
We all rode in the ambulance.
So you rode along?
Yes.
And why did you ride along?
I was concerned for Race.
Now, did Race speak to the plaintiff at all before they got into the ambulance?
No.
Or once in the ambulance?
No.
Okay, now, I would like to call your attention to the layout of Race's home. If you'll forgive me one moment. Can you see this clearly?
Yes.
Okay. Now, can you describe the fence out back there?
It has two gates. One is on the south side of the house, and the other two are on the north side.
So then there's 3 gates total?
Yes.
Okay. And when are those gates open?
Never.
Now, are you familiar with the type of fence there?
Yes.
I'd like to approach it. Does this look like the type of fence at Race's house?
Yes.
You state for the record what you just showed to the witness.
Yes, Your Honor. It's Joint Exhibit 8.
Thank you.
Now, did you hose off the pool deck that day, June 6th?
No.
Okay. Now, if you had hosed off the pool deck, what gate would you typically go in to hose off the pool deck?
The pool gate.
Why?
Because otherwise I would have to hop at the fence.
Did the plaintiff ask you to restrain your dogs that day?
No.
Did anyone else ask you to restrain your dogs that day?
No.
To the best of your knowledge, did the plaintiff ask anyone to enter your backyard that day?
No.
Are you aware of a city ordinance that requires a meter reader to ask permission to enter a yard?
Yes. And if she had asked, then Race wouldn't have been injured.
Just a couple more questions. Was Chowser a good guard dog?
Yes.
And what has been happening since you no longer have Chowser?
We have been robbed twice. I've had jewelry stolen. Race had some tools stolen.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor.
Counsel for the plaintiff is going to ask you a few questions.
Ms. Giles, when hosing off the pool deck, the left side gate at 1113 has to be open in order for the hose to reach the pool deck, correct?
Yes.
And
Objection, Your Honor. She's already testified that she would use the gate on the far right to enter the pool deck. Ask and answer.
She's giving a different answer this time.
I think the witness is confused, Your Honor.
Yeah.
Perhaps you could use the diagram to make clear which gate you're talking about, what exactly is going on here.
in order for the garden hose to reach the pool deck, wouldn't it's true that the hose would have to go through here to reach the pool deck, right? See this fence gate?
No.
It wouldn't.
No.
Now, you were inside the house up to the point Meade was attacked, correct?
Yes.
So you didn't actually see whether the fence gate that we were discussing was closed or not when Reeder was attacked, correct?
No.
And Ms. Giles, do you have any source of income besides what you received from Ipsa?
No.
No further questions.
Any redirect?
Yes, just very briefly, Your Honor. Ms. Giles, have you ever once spoken to the plaintiff before today?
No.
Thank you.
Ma'am, you're excused. Thank you very much.
It's okay.
Defense may call its next witness.
The defense calls the defendant, Robert Race Ipsa,
Please come forward, sir.
and for the purposes of the examination, I'll be using the diagram if that's all right with you all.
the diagram over there.
This diagram, yeah.
Yeah. That's
Sir,
fine.
is the testimony you're about to give in this court the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please sit down. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Robert Race Ipsa, I-P-S-A-H.
Counsel, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Ipsa, what do you do for a living?
I'm a real estate locator.
And where exactly do you live?
I actually live at 1113 South Glenwood Drive here in Columbia.
Where do you, or who do you live with?
I live with my roommate, Wes.
And how exactly do you know the plaintiff?
We're in the same fraternity back in college.
The plaintiff?
Oh, sorry, the plaintiff. I'm sorry. We're not talking about my roommate. The plaintiff. I don't actually know the plaintiff personally. We'd never talked or seen each other before the trial. So.
And now how do you know Wes?
Wes. Wes and I we were fraternity brothers back in college. I know that he works here in town. He's also my landlord. I live with him, so.
Mr. Ipsa, do you own dogs?
I do have a dog, an English setter named Queenie.
Did you previously own another dog, the dog in question, Chowser?
I did, yeah. I used to have this chow dog, Chowser.
And how did you come to own Chowser?
I actually bought it from Wes back in '05, I think.
Okay. So Wes was the previous owner. How would you describe Wes Minster?
Wes, the words nervous Nelly come to mind. He's just very anal. That's just kind of how he is. A nice guy, but just very, nervous, uptight about a lot of things.
Okay. Speaking of Chowser, the dog, would you recognize pictures of the dog if I were to show you them?
Oh, absolutely.
Permission to approach with Defense Exhibit 1, or 2 rather, and 1 and 2 rather.
That's fine.
Mr. Ipsa, take a second to look those over. Those appear to be fair and accurate copies or representations of the dog, Chowser.
Yes, they do.
We move to admit Defense Exhibits 1 and 2. I believe
They're
one's
admitted.
already
I think one's already in, but they're both admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. The plaintiff is claiming that Chowser, that dog, attacked him, or her rather, on June 6, 2010. Did you witness this alleged incident?
No, I didn't.
I'm showing you a copy of what's been marked as Joint Exhibit 8.
Okay.
It's already been admitted into evidence. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
Does that appear to be the same type of fence that surrounds your house at 1113 Glenwood?
Yeah, that chain link fence.
Could you describe for the court what type of fence it is?
It's a chain link fence, very easy to see through.
Okay. And
I
Your
have
Honor,
control already.
All right. Now, I'm going to direct your attention to Joint Exhibit number 7. How do you recognize this?
This is a diagram that I'd actually drawn of my subdivision.
Okay. And moving back to June 6th, the day in question, describe for the court what happened.
Well, let's see, June 6th. I had come home from work, ran inside. I saw Becky inside watching TV, probably some soap opera or something. I'd run upstairs to take a shower, and then a few minutes later I hear some growling or barking or yelling outside. So I throw some clothes on real quick. I run outside, and that's when I saw my dog Chowser on top of some intruder in my backyard.
When you saw the dog on top of an intruder, what did you do next?
Well, at that point, I didn't know who the person was at that point, but I ran up and I tried to get Chowser off of the person.
If I could ask the witness to step down and use the diagram briefly.
That's fine.
Would you show the court where you saw Chowser and the plaintiff and where you pulled the dog off of her?
Oh yeah, Chowser and the plaintiff, they were back here. Do you want to mark on?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Sure. Chowser and the plaintiff, I guess, were sort of back here, and I had actually run out off of the deck out there to get them.
And when you pulled Chowser off of her, where did you place Chowser?
Chowser actually hauled over the fence and put him into the pool yard.
Would you just mark that with a C?
Sure.
Thank you. And just stay there for 1 second. If anyone were to enter the backyard to read this meter, as been marked here, would you just circle which gate they would use?
Oh yeah, they were going to enter the backyard.
Your Honor, could they please move I'm sorry to interrupt. Could they please move the easel so that we can see it more easily from our perspective? Thank you.
Yep. Everyone see that all right?
That's fine.
So you marked this left gate here.
Yeah, to get in the backyard.
Okay. As you're approaching the backyard, you can go ahead and take your seat, Mr. Ipsa. As you're approaching the backyard and you're approaching this gate here on the left, you said it was a chain link fence. What presumably would you be able to see as you're approaching that back gate?
Oh, as you're coming up to that gate, you'd be able to see the whole backyard.
The entire backyard?
Oh, yeah, from that gate, sure.
So if your dogs were out there and you walked up to the gate, you'd be able to see them, right?
Oh, yeah.
When you returned home from work that day, did the dogs greet you?
I remember Queenie had her head up sort of over the fence. I remember going to pet her. She always comes up. She likes to see me when I get home. So.
But they didn't come through the gate, did they?
Well, no. No, the gate wasn't open.
Oh, okay. When you pulled the Chowser off of the plaintiff and put him into the pool area, were you injured?
Yes, I was.
How badly?
Pretty bad. I actually heard from a nurse at the hospital that I was injured, worse than the plaintiff was. Dog grabbed hold of my hand, he got a hold of my hand, and that really kind of messed that up. I had to have some surgery on my hand, grabbed hold of my arm, just being very territorial and everything.
Had you ever seen Chowser act like this before?
Not at all.
Directing your attention again to the diagram briefly, you don't need to get up. There's this oak tree here in the front. There's a sign on it, isn't there?
Oh, yeah. It says, dog, warning, beware of dog.
And it's a beware of dog sign. Did you place that sign there?
No, Wes did.
Why do you believe Wes put that sign up?
I think he put it up there to sort of warn people away from our property. There was this incident back in, what was that, maybe 2005, where some kid had come up to our house and thrown some eggs at the house. I think he just wanted to warn people away from our property.
Okay. We'll talk about the incident in a second. I just want to talk about the logistics. If we're walking up, say, from 11:15 or 11:11, if we're walking up either of these sidewalks, up the front walk here, and then up the front to your front door, would anyone be able to see this beware of dog sign?
Oh, sure.
It's one of those can't miss things?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Big sign.
Move back to the incident in 2005 that you talked about.
Sure.
What exactly happened? When was this?
That happened on Halloween in 2005. It being Halloween and all, there's all kids, running around with masks and stuff, and doing their trick-or-treating, and their parents are with them and everything. And I remember we were getting ready to take Chowser out maybe for a walk. I guess maybe West was or something. When this kid rolls up to our house on his bicycle, runs up our front yard, throws eggs at our house. Chowser wasn't really too psyched about that.
And what did Chowser do?
Chowser ran up to the kid. I think he knocked him off his bike.
Was the kid injured?
I can't really recall. I think Chowser may have grabbed his leg, but I don't think he was seriously injured.
And you weren't sued for this?
No.
And Mr. Minster wasn't sued?
No.
Why do you believe Chowser went after this kid that egged your house?
Oh, I think he was just being territorial. That's what dogs do.
In June, how old was Chowser?
In June of 2010?
2010, yes.
About 7 or 8.
And what type of personality would you say he had?
Oh, very gentle, like a big cat. Just come up and rub on you.
How would you describe his mannerisms? How did he react to you and Becky and West and then other people?
Oh, very, very gentle. Got along with most people.
Would you say that he was a territorial dog, though, defended the home?
Oh, yeah. I think a lot of dogs are.
Turning back to the 2005 incident real briefly, you said it was a busy night, a lot of people trick-or-treating. How many other people did Chowser go after that night?
Nobody.
No passerbys, no other trick-or-treaters?
Nope.
There was another incident in 2004 that the plaintiff has mentioned. Do you remember that?
I remember Wes telling me about it, but I wasn't there for it.
You didn't witness it?
No.
Were you living with Mr. Minster and Chowser at the time?
No.
Do you know how old Chowser was when this incident occurred?
Might have been about a year old.
So just a puppy?
Yeah.
Have you had any occasion to spend time with Chowser as a puppy?
I remember when he was a puppy, he was just very excited.
How would you describe his mannerisms as a puppy?
Very, very excited, but as puppies are wont to be, but still, pretty gentle.
After that incident in 2004, did you ever have a chance to speak with the mailman?
I think once.
What, if anything, did you learn?
He told me he overreacted to the whole thing. He said he kind of blew it out of proportion. Didn't really happen the way it looked in the letter, and more or less just told me that it seemed.
Objection, hearsay, Your Honor. Sorry.
Goes to its effect on the listener. We're not offering it for its truth.
Objections overruled.
Between Halloween 2005 and June 2010, can you recall any time where Chowser acted viciously or aggressively?
Absolutely not.
Has Chowser ever attacked anyone unprovoked?
No.
Your girlfriend, Becky, or fiance rather, congratulations,
Thank
Becky
you.
Giles just testified a few moments ago that she spent the night many times at your home and was very familiar with Chowser.
Yeah.
how many times was she attacked by Chowser?
None.
Wes told us that earlier when he testified that he sold the dog because he didn't want the responsibility of it anymore, but that he didn't really believe the dog was dangerous. In all the times you've lived with Wes, how many times did Chowser attack him?
Never.
Aside from June 6th when you were injured rescuing the plaintiff, how many times had Chowser attacked you?
None.
Do you believe that Chowser is an obviously dangerous animal, as the plaintiff contends?
No, absolutely not.
Did you ever have any reason to believe before 2006 that Chowser was obviously dangerous?
No.
Did you ever have any reason to believe before June 6, 2010 that Chowser had vicious propensities?
No, absolutely not.
Were you ever told by anyone that Chowser was obviously dangerous?
No.
And one final question. Before this trial, had you ever spoken to the plaintiff?
No, never seen him before in my life.
No further questions.
The witness, counsel.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ipsa.
Aye.
Isn't it true that after the attack on Ms. Reeder, the City of Columbia sent you a municipal summons?
Sometime after that, yeah.
And under that summons, you were required to pay a fine for knowingly harboring an animal with known dangerous propensities, right?
Was that what it was? Yeah, I think that sounds about right, sure.
And isn't it true that you pled guilty to that offense?
Yeah, I mean, it was in the hospital at the time, but I just paid off the ticket.
Wouldn't you agree that it was foreseeable that Ms. Reeder could sue you after your dog attacked her?
I didn't really know what she was going to do. I was in the hospital myself. I was actually off work for about 2 months, so I had a lot of other things going on at the time.
But it was foreseeable that if your dog attacked someone, that person could come and see you in the future.
Had I had a crystal ball, I'm sure I would have foreseen that. Like I said, hopped up on painkillers at the time. Wasn't really thinking too clearly.
Mr. Ipsa, you testified that you remember, in your deposition, you said that you remembered pulling into your driveway and seeing both of these gates closed.
Yes.
I'd like you to take a look at your deposition, if you don't mind.
Okay,
Can you
absolutely.
turn it to page 3?
Page 3. Oh, where you have marked page 3. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, the page numbers are
No,
wrong.
you're fine. You're fine.
If you could look at line 18 of your deposition and just read along as I read out loud.
Sure.
When asked whether you knew for sure whether the gates were closed, you testified, "As for that afternoon when I got home, it had to be closed then as well, because even though I don't remember for sure, if it had been open, I'm sure that Queenie would have come a-running to welcome me home." Is that correct?
Yes.
So, Mr. Ipsa, it appears that on the day of your deposition, which was months ago, you said you weren't positive you couldn't remember whether the gate was open or shut.
I did say that.
But yet, today in court, you just testified that you saw the dogs peering over the gate when you got home from work, correct?
Yes.
So now that we're at trial, which is months and months after the incident, you suddenly are much more confident in what you saw that afternoon, correct?
Well, you're leaving out my statement that I had right before that. I know because I remember that Queenie was at the gate jumping on it, trying to get over to, and say, hi. But I guess that was that morning. That's how I knew that it was closed in the morning. You're asking how do I know that it's closed in the afternoon?
In the afternoon, correct.
I just think it's a reasonable inference.
Okay. But you remember Queenie being in the house when you got home, though, correct?
I can't recall.
If you want to turn to that, it's on that same page, line 31. Does that help your memory at all?
31. Yeah, I guess so. I said that at the time.
So, just to clarify, you can't say with 100% certainty that the gate was closed on that afternoon because you didn't specifically look at it that afternoon when you got home. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
And you would agree that saying you always keep the gate closed is much different than actually seeing the gate closed on that afternoon of that day?
That's different, yes.
Mr. Ipsa, in your deposition, you also testified that when you pulled in the driveway, you could see the dogs running in the backyard, correct?
Yes.
And you also testified that a passerby saw what was happening during the attack on Ms. Reeder, and that's why he came to help, correct?
Correct.
Mr. Ipsa, wouldn't you agree that as you're pulling into your driveway here, a very limited portion of your backyard is visible, correct?
From the driveway?
Correct.
Yes.
Where you said that you saw the dogs running in the backyard.
Well, I mean, that was, driving up. There's a
You
whole different
specifically
angle.
said as you pulled into your driveway, though, Mr. Ipsa.
As I pulled into my driveway,
Yes,
which
so
encompasses
when
a
you
lot of
pull-
actions. That's the whole driving down the street to get to the driveway. You're going to, encounter
Okay.
a lot of different angles.
So
in the
maybe instead
backyard.
you should have said as I pulled into my street.
Sure.
Okay. So wouldn't you also admit, though, that a passerby here could have very limited sight of this attack that you say happened very, very close to the deck in the center of your backyard with this house in front of it?
Well, that illustration is meant to be an approximation, miss. By no means is it, potentially 100% accurate. As I recall, though, it did happen in the backyard, and I think that a passerby could have very easily seen that from the street. That's my testimony.
But would you, and that's fine, but would you agree that it would be easier for a passerby to see if it had been somewhat in this range?
It would have been easier, yes.
Your girlfriend, Becky, you had to remind her to close the gate on occasion in the past, correct?
Yes. Very rarely.
And she also left the sliding door over here open on that day, correct?
Yes.